Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. Of course, we're also now streaming live daily, audio-wise on iHeartRadio and TuneIn as well. So yeah, that's us here every day. And we had a lot of fun stuff on the show today. Kevin Sheehan's going to join us coming up in about 15 minutes. So we'll get to that. And Kevin's going to talk about all the uniform stuff with us. And we're going to talk about obviously the latest on RFK Stadium. So like, we'll get to all of that. And, to start the show today, I actually don't really know what I want to do with the next 8 minutes. And at some level, the hour opener that Ben just played, with, we could talk about our commutes again. Ben, I will say my commute was a lot easier today, going up my stairs to my home studio versus weaving through whatever lunacy was Washington, D.C. yesterday. Also, I only think there was one goober on the way home. Relatively quiet bike ride home yesterday, thankfully.
There you go. I saw a bike story in the hour opener folder. I was like, oh, that's pretty good considering what we talked about in the first segment yesterday was you having a bike catastrophe getting to the studio. And obviously you're not here today, so it's kind of ironic.
Yeah, so I thought that was an excellent choice by you. So good work on that. Strober with us today for one more before Haney returns on Monday. He's gallivanting around Barcelona now, having a great time. He has also approved that he is now Antonio after being Antoine in France. So when Anthony is back on Monday, we'll get all the stories. So sometimes when I just we have a kind of there's no huge story in sports today. It's July 3rd. By this point, hopefully most of y'all are on the way home if you had to work today and you're home a little early and it was an easy day. And I'm not looking to bum anybody out, but sometimes I'll just go to ESPN.com and be like, all right, what's the top story out there today in the sports world? This is currently the stack on ESPN.com. The stack, Ben, have you ever heard the term the stack before? You know what I'm talking about when I say the stack?
On ESPN.com?
Just generally. So it's when you go to a website, like a news website, the top stories list.
Okay.
It's so in ESPN.com's case, it's on the right side.
Yeah, it's it's stacked up.
Yeah,
okay,
it's a
stack. I get what you mean.
It's called the stack. Here's the stack currently on ESPN.com. Sources: Guardians Ortiz faces gambling inquiry. Story 2: Boxer Chavez Jr. arrested by ICE to be deported. Stack 3: ex-NBA guard Macklemore found guilty of sexual assault. It's top stories in sports today. Not super fun. And we don't need to get into the Chavez Jr. ICE arrest thing. Obviously, there's a lot of news on that front today with what went down in Congress. And this is not a politics show. If you want more coverage of that, flip the dial over to WTOP or or whoever else. Right? They got your coverage. WAMU. Our pal Tom Sherwood, I'm sure, has many thoughts, and they're probably worth listening to because that's his job. The gambling stuff is that we could talk about. So this is our second sports gambling story of the week. The Malik Beasley story is crazy. This one, Cleveland Guardians right-hander Luis Ortiz is under investigation by Major League Baseball after a betting integrity firm flagged a pair of pitches that had received unusual gambling activity, sources told ESPN on Thursday. Sources said betting integrity firm IC360 sent an alert in June to sportsbook operators regarding Ortiz, whom MLB has placed on a non-disciplinary paid leave through July 17th. The alert, according to sources who reviewed it, again, this is all from ESPN.com, Jeff Passan amongst those reporting, referenced action on Ortiz's first pitches in select innings to be a ball or a hit batsman in 2 games, in both the bottom of the second inning against the Mariners and the top of the third inning against the Cardinals. Ortiz threw a first pitch slider that was well outside the strike zone. The alert on Ortiz's first pitches flagged bets in Ohio, New York, and New Jersey. Betting on the result of first pitches is offered by some sports books, with such wagers commonly referred to as micro bets. This story's it's crazy because of the technology that we have now to monitor this stuff, where I'm sure if this is an if, I'm not saying he's guilty, but if he's guilty and he was helping give inside info, or he's throwing the result here, I'm sure he's wait, you can bet on my first pitch to hit a guy? Yeah, I'll ding a guy in the knee in the top of the second. I don't care. And then I'm making extra whatever thousands of dollars. And the fact that they can track the betting on this and understand like, whoa, that's abnormal. Whoa, the result is why is there so much betting on that very specific bizarre thing across multiple states? And they have the networks to do this is actually really cool. And I think is great to protect the integrity of the sport. The fact that this is a thing we have to worry about in sports now seems preposterous.
Did you hear what happened last week in baseball?
What happened last week?
So somebody in a Discord put out a parlay bet for like 10 dudes to homer. 10 of them, which is insane. I think like $20 or $10 paid out like $100,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
Or maybe even 5 to get even crazier than that. And I think James Wood was the last leg. And I kind of noticed when I was scrolling Twitter during the Nats game that everyone in the world was betting on James Wood to homer. I was like, that's kind of weird. And then he did end up homering in that game against his former team. And apparently, FanDuel the very next morning put out a new terms and conditions, and it states in the new terms that if they feel there was some sort of collusion where everyone is betting on the same thing, like people are working together to make certain bets, they can void your bet if they want to.
That's interesting, and probably smart to protect the book. Like even if there's no inside info, God forbid it hits, and like now you're way under, and like that one is far less harmful, obviously, because like what are the players can't conspire to homer unless all of the pitchers are in on it. If all the pitchers that are gonna pitch to these guys are like, hey, I'm gonna, and the hitters are in on it. It's like, hey, I'm gonna give you a batting practice fastball, and you're all gonna homer. Then we're all gonna make a bunch of money. Like that's ridiculous. To me, the thing that's like upsetting about this is like sports and competition at their core are about the game and the results. And like, yes, obviously these guys are making a ton of money. Like you're making money to compete, and if that doesn't do it for like, and they're making so much money. And I guess that's part of it too, is like, what's if you're making a couple million, or if you're Malik Beasley was going to be one of the top free agents on the market. Like his 3-point shooting last year was crazy good. He was going to be very sought after. They wanted to probably just retain him in Detroit, and he was going to sign like a $40-50 million contract that's fully guaranteed. How much is he making betting? Let's even say it's a couple million. Like that's a bad bet. Oh, I'm going to make $2 million and lose 50? Like you're down $48 million, bro. That's not good. And so I don't get it. I don't have any other, there's no like take here beyond that. Like I just truly don't get what we're doing here. And the fact that we have to care about this and have all these things in place is like genuinely sad. I don't know what it says about us as a species. Besides, a lot of us have issues. And like that, I could have told you, I guess. But it's just, I'm tired of like these being the stories, and maybe this stuff was already happening, and it was all way more under the table, and we didn't have to worry about it. And there may be a psychological argument to be like, whatever, out of sight, out of mind. I don't care. But with the legalization of sports gambling and getting it above the board, like we are, rooting some of this stuff out. And I think it's like another thing that's pretty interesting to me is the amount of younger players who have grown up more with gambling as a thing that's talked about in sports being the ones to do it. Like it's not a bunch of old heads who are getting caught. It's Calvin Ridley in the NFL. It's Malik Beasley in the NBA. Like these dudes are in their 20s. Like I just, if I can figure out the sports gambling thing, what are you doing? Anyway, that's my thought on that. On Happy July 3rd and what's currently trending, if you will, in the world of sports. Trending here in D.C., Commanders less than a week away from announcing their alternate uniforms, and then they will also, hopefully by next week, have some more clarity on the future of RFK Stadium. That July 15th deadline looming. We know it's not going to get done by then, but hopefully we can get a little bit more info. The council, the mayor's office, the team get all together to discuss. Kevin Sheehan talked to Mayor Bowser earlier this week. He also has been reporting on the uniform stuff, and he joins us next here on the Team 980. The Hoffman Show, we're on the Team 980, always live as well in the free Odyssey app, and now live on iHeartRadio and TuneIn as well. Of course, still live on YouTube at the Team 980 if you want to watch us on the video side. 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. every day, all those places, including the YouTube. You can watch Kevin Sheehan on the Kevin Sheehan Show, or you can just keep listening right now because Kevin's with us. We got the daily double of uniforms and stadium to talk about. And Kevin, you've been on top of all the uniform reporting. You've had some sources tell you some things along the way here. And we finally got an announcement from the team that there will be the alternate uniforms announced next week. What are you expecting those uniforms to look like? And if they are what you expect, what's your reaction to that?
Well, let me just say this. I'm not a uniform person. When I say I'm not a uniform person, I'm not one of those people that can say, oh, well, the stripe was here in 1989 and then they moved it to here. I just don't pay that much attention to the stuff. I do know this. I don't like anything about the branding that was unveiled on February 2nd, 2022, including the name and the current uniforms. I don't know what what I'm expecting is what I heard and talked about all the way back in October of last year, and that was that, even if they decided at some point not to do anything with the name, because they were certainly still considering it at that point, they were definitely going to do something with the uniforms to make them look like something resembling the team that, was here before 2022. And so I'm expecting something of like a throwback, to real burgundy, and the color scheme will look like the old uniforms. I don't think the old logo is going to come back. It's not that the logo, Craig, was ever a source of controversy, because it never was. The name was, the logo wasn't. But I don't, the thing that I was told back then is that the logo might be used somehow, but it's not a fit for the name. It would have to be a kind of a fit for whatever name they went to. So, that's what I'm expecting, is alternates that sort of look like something from the past, that will maybe make a lot of us, feel like we're watching the team that we grew up watching. And what I was told, again, all the way back in October that I shared with my audience was that, the hope would be that it would go from alternates to something a year or two later that might be more permanent.
So the logo, I definitely think, is not coming back, and the hint we got from that is they gave us a silhouette except for on the helmet where the W was.
Exactly.
It very much, and I was told that was like, kind of take the hint. That is what it's going to be. Kevin, I'm curious because we had this conversation yesterday on our show. Ben is producing for us this week, and he's 21 years old, so he's a child, and I'm 35, and so I feel like kind of two interesting age brackets. Then you have kind of your era of fans that got to actually grow up going to games at RFK, and what Ben and I were talking about is how, for people of my generation and younger, and especially for his generation, where the old name, logo, and the colors, like the brand of that team, is mostly sadness because they didn't have the good times that you got to experience at RFK, seeing Super Bowls, being there when the stadium was shaking, all of the things that are just lore to us. So I'm curious, when you have taken calls on this on your show and you interact with the younger fans, what are those conversations like when you're in this chair talking about it versus someone who has my experience growing up watching a team that was mostly sad when I think of the burgundy and gold?
A lot of people like to tie it to kind of age. Like if you're over a certain age, over 40 or over 45, this stuff really, really matters to you. What I have found is anybody that's been from here, even the kids of people who were big fans and grew up in RFK and the whole thing, that they have a strong affinity for what it used to be, name, branding, uniforms, etc. But, I don't have the data that the team has. This has, been a big part of the conversation for me over the last couple of years, and that is, there's no easy answer because Redskins isn't available, all right? So I know there's still people that say, oh, well, the political climate has changed. why not? Well, why not is that, the corporate sponsors of the NFL that have created this $27 billion monstrosity, that the toothpaste left the toothpaste holder and its the toothpaste tube, and it's not coming back, even if it's okay for it to come back, because for too many people it won't be, including, sponsors and, more importantly, their shareholders, customers, etc. So without that, which would be the home run answer, everything else is, difficult. It's like there's no easy answer. So coming up with the answer to the name and all the other stuff was never going to be easy. I always felt like doing something about it was better than not doing something about it. But 12-5 and 2 playoff wins allowed them sort of the path of least resistance. But it's not an easy answer. And the other part of it, Craig, is the people with the greatest lifetime value are people that are young. That's the future of the business. So whatever they're doing, they should be targeting a younger audience that's going to be around a much longer period of time and have a lot more money to spend. And by the way, I would guess doesn't care as much about, name, branding, etc. But they have those answers. Everybody else is just speculating.
Kevin Sheehan with us here on the Hoffman Show. Of course, listen to Kevin each day, 10 a.m. to 1 here on the team at 980. You mentioned how the record last year, and I think a couple other factors, like the fact that that Adam Peters came up with the Commander's tag type of thing, and that now all of a sudden means something, changed the calculus here. How much did you feel at all that changing for you personally last year? Because I'm with you. Like, nothing they did on February 2nd, 2022, I'm like, oh, this was nailed that. Great job, everybody. But it also, that's what we associated it with. Now, when I think of Commanders, I think of Jaden Daniels. Did you find that happening to you as well at all last year? Or are you still like, no, it still kind of sucks, and, hopefully these alternates will eventually become the permanents?
Yeah, I mean, I look, it wasn't just, February of 2022. People had quantified it out there. 2/3 of the fan base basically had disappeared. And it wasn't just because of that. It was because of Snyder and the horrific, performance of the team and the, awful way in which the team behaved, et cetera. But that was the death knell for a lot of people. And a lot of those people have not come back. And, a lot of that's reflected just in some of the ticket sales stuff. I mean, if anybody out there is, has even inquired about tickets, I mean, they're being hounded. You can get tickets for games next year. Now, I would guess that by the time we get to some of these games, they're going to be sold out because, 12-5, superstar young quarterback usually means in the NFL, you're sold out season ticket wise the next year and pretty quickly. But I don't feel it the same way I used to feel it. I don't think I ever will. I think a lot of that was sucked out of it during, especially the last 10 or so years of Snyder. And then obviously the name and the brand is definitely a big deal for me. But with that said, I loved watching Jaden Daniels last year. I do a show like you do every single day. This team is the number one topic in town, always has been, probably always will be. The NFL is the top topic in almost every town. And that was just a fun team to watch and a great player at the most important position on the field to watch. And so, I've got something vested just in that. I was a huge Jaden Daniels fan coming out. I was, screaming, you got to take this guy. He's going to be the next, big deal. So you know how that goes. We want to be right. But yeah, I was into it. And I'll tell you what, when we got to Championship Sunday against the Eagles, to be in that spot after 33 years of not being in that spot, to be there on, that stage, 2 games, Championship Sunday, that felt special for anybody that's rooted for Washington over the years. Would I have preferred the old name? Yeah, of course. But there was something special about that game and the way it sort of went until it went poorly late.
Kevin Sheehan with
late
us.
the first half.
Yeah, it didn't. Yeah, it got late early, as they say. Kevin Sheehan with us here on the Hoffman Show. You also talked to Mayor Bowser this week about RFK and the latest. She said she's quite concerned about this deal. And Kevin, what I can't get a straight answer from anybody on, and I feel like you tried to get this out of Mayor Bowser, and she expertly politically dodged the question, is this July 15th deadline real, or is it political pressure, basically? Is this something where if they don't get this deal done, they can't complete construction on time, they can't bid for the World Cup, they can't do the things that they want to do, and they can if they just go back to Maryland, so they would? Or is this political pressure because the commanders and the mayor's office like the deal and they would like the terms to be what they are? What is your lean on that, having talked to the people that you've talked to?
Well, I had Mark Ein on yesterday, and he, like I said, is there a point where it gets too late, and it's too late for them to vote? And he said, well, of course there is, a time in which it gets too late, but he wasn't going to put a date on it either. So yeah, we've tried to get the actual date. We know that the term sheet, the agreement between the city and the team, the exclusive negotiating period was through July 15th. But that doesn't mean that the term sheet expires on July 15th. The term sheet, the deal that the city has with the team, continues to be enforced. It just means that if the team wanted, they could then go back to Maryland or Virginia. I, Craig, think this is going to get passed. I think the city council will end up voting on it sometime before the end of the summer. I don't think it'll end up being in September. I mean, it's almost at this point, like, why even? The team's frustrated, clearly, because, government doesn't work at the same pace that, business, and especially when you're run by a group of people that have been entrepreneurs their entire life, in that 24-hour, 7-day a week, sort of mindset. And I'm sure they're like, you got to be kidding me. Can you guys just lock yourself in a room with us and let's get this thing hammered out and let's get it done? But I think it's going to happen, and I think it'll happen before the end of the summer.
Well, that was, to me, one of the fascinating things about what Mayor Bowser said to you was she's like, I don't know what they want. We just got to get in a room and get this thing done. And I think that sounds really good. But if you listen to the council side of it, if you have an Eric Flack or a Mark Seagraves on and you ask them about it, they'd be like, the reason they can't do that is because they haven't had the thing long enough to know what they even want. Like, they haven't had a chance to read the bill because the mayor was so late with her budget. And of course, because it's politics, no one's going to do any self-reflection or own their part of it. And so I agree with you, Kevin, that this thing is going to get done. My question is, could they just do it without snapping and snipping at each other? Could they do this without the posturing? Or are we just going to have to live with this and pretend like the things they're saying are important, knowing the outcome all along?
Yeah, I can't pretend to know what they have and what they don't have. I mean, we know that the term sheet, the deal was done late April, but there was still going to be the process of it being incorporated into the budget. And I don't understand all of that. But yeah, I do think that, I certainly think that the team is probably, there's a lot of eye rolling and pulling out hair because of how, these things get viewed, and the talk of, well, we're not going to be around and we're going to recess and we can't get to it until mid-September. It's just not the way that they've operated in their businesses for their entire lives. They've got a client, they've got a big deal, whatever it takes, we're going to get it done if we've got to lock ourselves in here all weekend long and answer every single question that anybody has. And I don't know that they feel like that sense of urgency is on the other side. But at the same time, the team wants to be there. The city wants to be there. The mayor does, the council does. And that polling that came out, a month ago now?
Yeah.
I mean, how many cities, when tax dollars, no matter what level of tax dollars, go towards, billionaires building a new stadium, usually the polling is terrible on those things with tax-paying residents. And the majority, I think it was 55%, want it. So it's going to get done. It'll get done, and hopefully there won't be any hard feelings. It's just business.
It is, and what's really up here is the details of what goes into that, and it sure would be nice if they would release some of the information so we had an idea what they're quibbling over. But it has been a very behind the scenes secretive process, and so we wait.
Yeah, and by the way,
wait.
Craig, I want, as a DC resident, I want the city council to fight for every last thing. It's exactly what they should be doing. The issue is, you had this term sheet, you had a deadline of exclusive negotiation, and they're talking about, potentially 2 months beyond the deadline date. And I can't tell you for sure if that is something that's appropriate or not, because I don't have all the information, nor do you.
Right. And that's the thing, is like everyone seems to be doing their job. It's just some of their jobs run in conflict of each other, which is, in part how it's set up. It's why you have a council and a mayor's office that have to agree on stuff. But it sure is complicated and messy, and it will be nice when we get to September and just get to talk about ball on the field, and hopefully this is all done. And then, it's just a much simpler time in sports talk radio. At least we have something to talk about in July. Kevin Sheehan with us here on the Hoffman Show. Again, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Also check out the Kevin Sheehan Show podcast wherever you get yours. Kevin, appreciate you doing this. Have a great holiday, and we'll talk to you soon.
Anytime, Craig. Thanks. You too.
This is the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.
It's Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Again, we'll take your calls in just a second. 301-230-0980 is the phone number. 301-230-0980. Your thoughts on the uniform announcement that is coming next week? Sounds like it's going to be original colors, new logo. Does that make anybody happy? Is that a compromise we can live with, or is it a compromise that winds up just like, hey, just either move on or go back? I'm fine with it. I think that, paying homage to the championship teams the best you can within the current world that we live is fine. But I'm just a guy with a radio show and an opinion. And you're a guy or a gal with an opinion. So give us a call, 301-230-0980 Or are you starting to get frustrated with how DC is handling this, especially if you're a district resident? I'm curious to hear from you, because something Sheehan said at the end there, I also hold true with, which is like Kevin and I both live within the district. And as a taxpayer, I would like the best deal for me while also not losing the city. Like, I understand it's going to cost me something. I'm not anti. I know there are people that are just flat out anti, let Josh Harris pay for all of it. And I'm like, no, like, I would like the city to have some say here. I would like, if the city is going to benefit, then if we are going to benefit, then we can pay a little bit. Like, we pay a little bit collectively, and then we get a lot in return. That's what it means to be a part of a society and to live in a city that has a professional sports team. It doesn't just go all on the owner. So I'm fine with that. I understand other people feel differently. That is what it is. But I also am like, hey, let's do the best we can. And I'm just curious if you're starting to get frustrated, because it does feel like there's a lot of back and forth. And every time you hear a council member speak, you're like, oh, they make a good point. Every time you hear the mayor speak, you're like, oh, they make a good point. So 301-230-0980 is the phone number. We will take your calls next after a look at what's trending. Coming up at 5 o'clock, Ben Golliver, Washington Post, is with us here on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show. We're live on the free Odyssey app as well as iHeartRadio and TuneIn Radio, so you can search for those apps. Or if you have them on your phone and you just never got around to the Odyssey app, we're not going to shame you or anything. It's fine. Just like, we understand, it's a lot of apps out there in app world. And you might already had TuneIn, you might already had iHeart, and now all you got to do is search the Team 980. You can listen to us there. Of course, you can watch us on YouTube. Subscribe to the Team 980's YouTube channel, not only for this show and Sheehan's show live, but the best of both of those shows on demand and the Take Command podcast as well. Fresh episode out today, by the way, of Take Command. We ranked the coaches in the NFC East, did Logan and I. Never read the comments coming up at 5:30 as well. Speaking of YouTube, lots of different variety of things that got people agitated, irritated, and also whatever the opposite of those things are. Intrigued. We can do positive comments too on the interwebs, and we'll read some of the best coming up at 5:30. But following up now on the discussion we were having with Sheehan and kind of the latest in the RFK saga as it has turned into that. These things tend to do this. But Ben Schrober, again, with us in for Anthony this week. And Ben, you had some thoughts on this that I think are kind of interesting based off where you live and also the fact that you were literally not alive when RFK Stadium last hosted a football game.
That's exactly right. I've been to RFK Stadium for a Nationals game, actually. I went back in 2007 on July 4th, which is a pretty funny memory. So it'll be
happy anniversary to that memory.
18 years ago?
Yeah.
Wow, 18 years ago. I was 4 years old.
You don't remember that, do you?
No, I've just seen pictures of it, actually.
Right.
It was my dad. It's my dad's birthday, so
okay.
I guess we went for his birthday.
There you go.
I've lived in Maryland, Montgomery County my entire life, and now that there's really an opportunity for the team to go back to Washington, D.C., because I think from what I can remember in my young life, I'd always ask my dad, hey, why don't the then Washington Redskins play in D.C.? And he's like, they play in Maryland. They play in Prince George's County. And throughout a lot of my life, I went to games at FedEx Field, and then I didn't go for a really long time. I didn't go for, I think, 8 years until I found out that Dan Snyder was selling, and then I chose to go back, and I went to a bunch of games last year, actually. But a part of me has always just wanted the team to go back to D.C., one, for the nostalgia factor for people like my dad and other people I'm close with that got to see the team thrive in RFK Stadium. It just makes sense to me. It really does. And then also like the economic impact that we're seeing as a possibility within all the terms of the RFK deal. And I know it's a whole thing that's being sifted through with the council right now. And I just really hope it gets done. And I guess a lot of people like me would assume that someone that lives in Maryland would have a bias that I want the stadium to stay in Maryland, or I don't care because I wasn't a part of that era that got to see the team win a whole bunch of football games every year at RFK. I really want that to get done. I want the opportunity to experience what people like my dad did.
Yeah, I think the nostalgia factor is huge. And then, like, there's just kind of, like, I'm glad you brought up the common sense thing where it's like, they're the Washington Commanders. Why don't they play in Washington, D.C.? And it's not, of course, unheard of. I mean, you know, the Jets and Giants play in New Jersey, and, you know, there's other teams. You know, San Francisco 49ers do not play in San Francisco. They play in Santa Clara, which is not too terribly far mileage-wise, but anyone who's ever sat in Bay Area traffic knows it is a long way away.
My cousin lives in San Francisco. It's a very unpopular thing that the team moved there.
Yeah, people hate it. Absolutely hate it. I mean, same thing for, like, you know, when Bay FC, the NWSL team, got there, and everyone's like, "Oh, cool, we got a team in the Bay Area." Then it's like, "Wait, where are we in the Bay Area?" They're in like they're I think close to that same Santa Clara area. They're getting a new stadium in San Francisco in a couple of years, but it's like, you know, I remember driving past Candlestick at one point when I was out in the Bay Area and just being like, "Oh, that's where they used to play." That makes a lot more sense, knowing I was like an hour and a half away from the stadium. So, yeah, man, like there is just kind of this logic, and sure, we understand Washington and the greater DMV and the Washington region. Like there's some to all of this, but from a logistical standpoint, kind of the centralized location. Obviously, being back at RFK would be awesome. Making it more accessible for things like Metro and the easier in and out, like that part of it makes a ton of sense. I think the economic arguments are just like do I have some thoughts that I feel like are somewhat informed? Yes. But there's just too many conflicting smart people talking about this stuff. And I think too many different motivations to really make sense of it. Because, for instance, right, Ben, you're like, even though I live in Maryland and I know that, they always pitch the economic impact on an area or a state, like I want it to go to D.C. There's probably other people that are in Maryland that are like, hell yeah, I want it in D.C. because I want to be able to go, but I don't want to have to pay for the thing.
That's a good point.
So it can work. It can cut both ways. Like, are you willing to pay for it as a resident? But I do think like this is something that's pretty unique about the district, and why when the economists talk about it, I just find it really hard to believe some of the generalities that they speak in, because if it goes to Maryland and you're subsidizing it, both like on the input side, the taxpayer side, but also like the economic, development that comes out of it, the impact feels like it would just be so much larger, for better or for worse, by the way. And so maybe that's something that's worth pointing out. It feels like it would just be so much larger if you are in the district, because we have such a smaller population and land area compared to Maryland, where like if you live out near West Virginia 3 hours away, like, or you, even if you live in Baltimore, you're like, we got our own stadium here. Like, what are we doing paying for the stadium in Landover? And are we actually like getting any benefit out of that as a state? Versus like you look at DC and that land that we just don't have a lot of land in the district. Like if you want to build housing, there ain't anywhere else to do it. And so unlocking that land and saying, hey, the key, so to speak, to unlock this door is a football stadium. That's what got it out of Congress. And now that the door is open, we can do a lot of other things that we want and need to do as a city. Like, to me, that has always kind of passed the logic test. Now, I don't know what I don't know. I'm not an economist. I'm just a guy with a sports talk show. But that kind of has always made sense to me. And I think it's one of the mayor's most convincing arguments is if we do this now, we know what we're doing and we can accomplish, maybe it's not perfect, but we can accomplish a lot of what we want, versus we pass on this and then we spend a bunch of years fighting over some quote unquote perfect plan and then just nothing gets done. And that's like the worst possible outcome.
I have a really funny story from another thing where I was trying to use, I guess, my common sense of a 8-year-old kid at the time. Go to Nats games with my dad at Nationals Park, which was relatively new. I think it opened when I was 5.
Right.
But it's so hot in the summers and humid. And my dad and I always talk, I wish they had a dome or a retractable roof or something. And I was like, what if everybody just gave the Nats $100 and then they could just use that money to build the dome? He's like, that's called that's how tax paying work. Like, people will pay taxes and then they use that to like build stadiums, roads, and schools and stuff. And now I get to the point in my life where I go, oh, people don't like their tax money being used to build stadiums.
Right.
It's funny.
Well,
that,
people don't like paying
perspective
taxes, period. They just like the thing that taxes do for them, which is, again, that's a very different show. I'm not going to go too deep into that and the possibilities of what could be if we all just were willing to pay a little bit more, because otherwise we wind up paying a lot more for things. But that is the thing. It's like, if you want a stadium that's close by, we've talked about this on the show, Ben, in time. Believe it or not, the show did exist before this week when you when you got assigned to fill in for Anthony. But like, one of the things I've talked about is, you're paying for the entertainment. Like, when you go to the movies, you don't look at like you buying your movie ticket as an investment. You're like, no, I'm paying so that I get to watch the movie and have entertainment. And in many ways, I look at the taxes that we pay for stadiums as that. It's like, if I pay it, then I don't have to drive to Woodbridge or Landover or somewhere far away out across a state line to go see these things. It's paying essentially a convenience fee. It's just in the form of taxes because it's collected by the government. But again, that gets real hairy and complicated real fast, and I don't want to get too far out of our depth. Plus, oh, look at that. We're out of time. Ben Golliver is the national NBA writer for the Washington Post, and he is going to join us to talk about NBA free agency next. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. Again, you can also now listen to us on iHeartRadio and tune in. So exciting new ways to check out the show. It's the same in every place, but if you want to bounce around, have fun, or if you got an app that's your favorite, go for it. Use it. Right now, 5 o'clock, typically not my beat. There's no real top story today, but we do have a top flight guest to talk about one of the big stories of the week. Ben Golliver is the national NBA writer for the Washington Post, and he joins us now. Golliver, what's up, man? Thanks for joining the show.
Not too much, just, getting ready for this 4th of July holiday after a couple of days of NBA free agency, so life is good. I hope the same for you.
Yes, indeed. Exact same. Excited for the holiday. Should be a fun, long weekend, and, we'll see what else goes down. At least this year we're not waiting. It was, 2016 when we were just all waiting, and then Kevin Durant blew up everybody's 4th of July with his own little firework of that's when he joined the Warriors on July 4th, so it's always like, NBA PTSD this time of year. Obviously, Durant's been one of the bigger moves. But Ben, just generally speaking, like, what have you made of kind of the contour of this free agent period? What kind of teams have made moves? What kind of teams have stood pat? Like, what have you made based off of what you expected to happen of how these first early days of free agency have gone?
Well, I'll be honest. I think I share your nostalgia. I mean, the good old days of Kevin Durant at the Hamptons with the different meetings, or, guys like Carmelo Anthony going from city to city, getting their jerseys held up by the organizations trying to recruit them. They feel long gone. It's been, I would say, kind of a relatively boring start to free agency. We haven't seen a ton of blockbuster moves yet. Teams don't have cap space. There's not a ton of buying power out there. And so it's been, I think, more about the trades, like you mentioned. I mean, Kevin Durant getting traded even before the draft to the Houston Rockets, it signals the Rockets mean business. They've backed that up with a whole bunch of re-signings of their own players. They go out and grab Dorian Finney-Smith from the Lakers, Clint Capella from the Hawks. I mean, clearly they're trying to position themselves as a top threat to the Oklahoma City Thunder in the Western Conference. So that part has been exciting. The KD angle, to me, is the most thrilling part about it, though, because he has not been in a conference finals game since he left the Warriors in 2019. He's about to turn 37. When you look at the teams that have won championships in these last couple of years, and this is really throughout NBA history, but even these last couple of years, there's been one big guy who gets them over the hump, right? Joker, Steph Curry, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander this year, pulling those teams to the championship. That's going to have to be Kevin Durant's role in Houston. They have a lot of depth around him, a lot of talented pieces, but he is the alpha guy. We've seen, Steph Curry get injured the last year's playoffs, LeBron James kind of going out in the first round recently. It's asking an awful lot of a superstar at that stage of his career to still be the guy who can lead a deep playoff run, who can lead a championship push. And so I think after a couple of years of going under the radar in Phoenix, where there really wasn't much to talk about, wasn't very fun to watch that team play. They didn't have very good chemistry. Haiti gets a fresh start in Houston, but he gets the pressure back on him. The spotlight's going to be back on him for sure.
No, that's a great point. And offensively, obviously, we'll see what Alperen Sengun can do if he can be a guy that can enter that class, but it feels like it's going to be Durant. When you look at again, this contour, if you will, of free agency, Ben, is this going to be a new normal where trades rue the day because of the new cap rules and all these things that have shaped so many of these deals, the financial considerations? Or is this just a single year anomaly where a lot of teams look to the free agent market, said it's not really worth having cap space, and in the next couple of years we'll return to free agent palooza and kind of what we've known in the NBA this time of year?
From what I'm hearing, it's going to be more of the norm. The main reason why is they kind of created these new rules where you can extend your contract with your current team in a lot of different scenarios. They got the renegotiations extensions like Jaren Jackson had with the Memphis Grizzlies. You could just keep tacking on extra years, if you're a high-level player. And so, of course, the players and the agents are going to take that money if it's offered to them because it represents financial security. I think the general idea is like, well, even if you're not happy in your location, take the extension and then figure out a trade later. Don't wait to go to free agency because, God forbid you have one of these Achilles injuries that seems like they're striking everybody down, Halliburton and Tatum and Lillard. God forbid you have an injury like that right before you're a free agent. that could wipe out your earning potential, right? And really, put you in a tough spot if you're a player. So the best names are rarely entering free agency anymore, and I think that's going to continue to be a trend. Now, it does make for an exciting trade market, right? Like Kevin Durant gets traded. Like that's a big deal. Everybody gets excited. I've seen all these trade rumors about LeBron. Is he going to get traded? And again, that drives a lot of interest. And so it's not like, the player movement isn't there. I mean, we're like 3 or 4 months removed from Luka Doncic, of all people, getting traded to the Lakers, right? So there's definitely a lot of movement, but it just gets spread out around the NBA calendar. So we don't really get this great holiday moment where it kind of felt like Christmas with the free agency period back in the day. And, unfortunately, we're left to kind of get excited about, Nickeil Alexander-Walker goes to the Hawks, right? Like that's something that really gets people going here because we don't have anything else going on this week in the NBA.
It just means we get more cacaws from Zach Lowe on his podcast. So that's, I'm all in favor of that. That's a deep cut for all the NBA nerds, but if you know, you know. Ben Golliver with us here on the Hoffman Show, Washington Post, national NBA reporter. So if we think about that thought exercise here, Ben, if you're a team like the Wizards or basically any team that's not the Heat, not the Lakers, not the Rockets, not one of these teams that tends to get big name free agents when they do hit the market, or the Knicks at least get a meeting, right? Are you more excited about this new kind of landscape of the league where trades might rue the day? Because if you accumulate the right number of or the right kinds of assets, the player might be kind of, I don't want to say stuck with you, because a lot of these players do have at least some level of dictation, especially if they're forcing their way out. But that you might have a better chance at acquiring a star, or does this not really change that calculus at all?
Well, look, I mean, we're seeing some non-destination markets, swing some trades this summer for some talented players. Like, look at the Boston Celtics, right? Their season blows up because Tatum gets injured. They need to offload talent. Well, the Portland Trailblazers get Drew Holiday. I mean, as crazy as it might sound, because, Holiday's like 35 years old, he might be their best player next year. He's one of their top talents, and they're able to get him in a trade, giving up Anthony Simons, who, to me, one-way player, not super valuable. And so, the Blazers benefit from this new landscape where the teams are feeling pressure from the hard cap to not just retain as many talented pieces as possible if they're not in title contention mode. The Hawks, who we mentioned earlier, snagged Kristaps Porzingis from the Boston Celtics. So the talent is getting spread out around the league. It creates opportunities for some other organizations. You mentioned the Wizards. I actually really like how they're positioning themselves, right? Because still the easiest way to build up a winner is not going to be trades. If you're in a non-glamour, non-destination type organization, it's always going to be the draft. And what the Wizards are doing is they're just stockpiling recent lottery picks, all with some pretty intriguing pieces. The most recent one of those, obviously, Trey Johnson, the shooting guard coming from Texas, right? So maybe they don't have that alpha player yet, the guy who's going to be like the face of the offense going forward. But they've got a lot of interesting guys between Trey Johnson, Alex Sarr, Bilal, Bub Carrington. Like, they're pulling it together, and they have a very clear vision. Everything kind of makes sense cohesively in terms of which direction they're going. They're trying to clear their books for next summer. Is that going to be some splashy trade for a superstar? Probably not, but it could be some other trades around the edges to bring back more draft picks, to maybe find some veteran players who can help support your young core, sort of like what Houston has done, where they're going out there and getting a bunch of vets to kind of hit fast forward on their own rebuilding effort from a couple of years ago. Flexibility is so prized right now in the NBA because of the hard cap. And I think if you're not a good team, you want to be as flexible as possible. You don't want to have loaded up books. Like, if you're the Raptors, you're bad, but you've also spent all this money on players who aren't that good. Most recently, Jakob Poeltl, but also Brandon Ingram. Scotty Barnes really hasn't quite hit yet. Quickly is on a crazy contract. So the Raptors are bad and they're stuck. The Wizards might be bad, but they're not stuck at all. They're in a very flexible position. I'd be buying stock in the Wizards here over the next 2 or 3 years, no doubt about it.
Ben Golliver, Washington Post, with us here on the Hoffman Show. So all of that kind of culminates in, if you wanted to summarize it, right? Like, we have parity. The NBA has been looking for parity forever. That said, Ben, as you talk to folks around the league, do folks actually like, and this can be league office, this can be teams, and I'm sure this is not unanimous, do teams actually like what this looks like? Like, is this actually, like, it's working to accomplish parity, but do they think that this current hard cap structure where it's really hard to keep a team together, et cetera, is actually good for the league?
Well, obviously, the teams that have spent huge money in the past and they want to accumulate as much talent as possible, they're annoyed because they're getting kneecapped, right? So, like, if you're the Warriors or you're the Clippers, you're that kind of a team. You don't want any of these rules that are forcing you to trade away a Klay Thompson, right? Or to let Paul George walk in free agency. Like, you'd way rather be able to just, form a super team. But I think by and large, the NBA league office and the owners are very happy with how this is going. I mean, imagine that you spent $2 billion on a franchise to, own an NBA team, and your team literally did not have a chance to win, right? Like, there's 15, 20 teams, going back through NBA history, until recently, who never even had a chance to compete for a championship. You look at the Pacers, they still haven't won a title, but they got to the finals for the first time in 25 years. The Thunder win their first championship since Oklahoma City, in 2008. You've got the Milwaukee Bucks who won a championship in 2021. They hadn't won in 50 years. The Nuggets had never won when they won in 2023. So all those teams are like, thank God, we finally have a chance. Parity is great. It opened up the door where if we got the right star, if we got a Giannis or we got a Jokic or we got a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, we actually have a chance to go all the way and not just get beaten down by a super team. So I think in general, the NBA itself is pleased because the owners are pleased. And that's sort of who Adam Silver answers to. I think there's a better question, though, is whether guys like you and me or your listeners, NBA fans, whether they like this, because we had a fascinating, highly competitive NBA finals, between the Oklahoma City Thunder and Indiana Pacers. But they're small market organizations. They don't have household name super duper stars like a LeBron James or a Steph Curry. And the ratings, came along once they got to Game 7, but they were not nearly as big as maybe you would expect if some more glamorous, familiar teams were in the mix. And so it's a delicate balance for the NBA because they've never been the league of parity. They've always been the league of superstars and super teams, going all the way back to their inception with, the Bill Russell and the Celtics all the way back in the day. So it's kind of an adjustment period for people who are fans of the NBA. And I'm not sure everybody's caught on yet. Like, I think there's still a real adjustment going on for basketball lovers. I don't mind it. It lets me go see new cities that I haven't been to a lot and kind of see new stars, come up, in these playoffs and have these great moments like Halliburton did and like Shea and Jalen Williams did. But I'm not sure it's catching on for everybody.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point. Did you think of what the NBA's brand has been built on? And it's the stars and the super teams. It's Magic and Bird. It's Michael. It's all the way through LeBron and Steph and their rivalry. And I wonder if there is some happy medium, Ben, between the two because, in 3-4 years when the Thunder have to pay everybody, like there's just not a way that they're going to be able to do it year over year. It feels incredibly unfair that, the Boston Celtics, well, I don't think they're going to wind up trading Jaylen Brown. Like the fact that they even had to think about it because of the Tatum injury and the fact that they did have to trade Holiday and Porzingis because it's like we can't afford to keep this team together that we built because the tax implications and the apron, like the roster building implications because of the aprons, like it's too much. We're better off blowing up our team. And if the price of success is you have to blow up your team, I do wonder if there is a breaking point or if perhaps it's gone a little bit too far and there's a way to roll it back just enough that you keep the parity, but also it's not quite as punitive financially. And we can see some super teams, as long as they're built organically, exist in this next era of the NBA.
Well, look, I mean, everything is always an adjustment and an evolution, right? So, if stars want to play together, if stars want to take discounts on their contracts, they can go and form a super team, right? I mean, it comes down to, do stars want to get their full money? And like we saw LeBron, he opted in for $53 million. He didn't want to do any favors to the Lakers by taking a discount. That's his choice. I mean, you understand where he's coming from, all the wealth he's generating for the league. But if you want your money, these rules say it's very difficult to put 3 max-level stars together and still be able to form a competitive team. So I would also point out, though, look, like I think the Celtics, they took a step back this summer, no question, because they had to shed all this talent, save all this money. I think they're going to be right back in the mix as soon as they get Tatum back healthy. Like I think this is like a one-year deal. They're going to be able to find some other pieces around them, keep that core with Jaylen Brown and with Derek White, and they're still going to be a big problem for everybody in the Eastern Conference. You look at what Denver did, the last couple of years, they didn't even have a bench. And so it was kind of depressing to watch the Nuggets because, they've got the best player in the sport, but he doesn't have enough help. And, if they had looser rules like you're describing, well, it'd be easier for Denver to keep players in Denver and Jokic would have more help and be able to compete. Well, they have a pretty good summer. They trade Michael Porter Jr., get off his bad contract, bring back Cam Johnson, sign Tim Hardaway Jr., make some other moves around the edges, and now they're in position where they're going to be legit title contenders next year. So these rules are forcing teams to think harder, to make some painful decisions like you're talking about. But I don't know if it's necessarily wrecking these teams in their ability to have a chance to compete for a championship, right? Like if you're able to, make the right trade here and there, dump an expensive player to a different team, but maybe bring back 2 or 3 role players in that guy's place, you should still be in the mix and able to compete. And I think the real red flag warning to me would be if they consistently get into a situation where the very best players can't compete for championships. And like right now, Giannis is in that spot in Milwaukee. Like they've just mortgaged so much of their assets. They don't have enough talent. Even though they did this whole Damian Lillard waiving and bringing in Miles Turner, like he's not going to be able to compete for a title next year. We got to watch the Lakers with Luka. Like, are they going to be in a position to compete for a title? That's another one to keep an eye on because what you want is you want your premier players always having a chance. And going into next year, Shea has a chance. Jokic has a chance. Once Tatum's back healthy the following year, I think he's going to have a chance. To me, that's the sign of a healthy league. But if it starts to become too difficult for those guys to have playoff runs, then the NBA is really going to need to rethink some of these rules. But these rules are here to stay. I don't anticipate any adjustments in the near term. We all just have to kind of get used to it.
Free advice for the league office: get rid of the Supermax. That's how you accomplish. Because I love that framing, Ben. I think it's so good. The sign of a healthy league is that your best players are competing for championships. But if they inherently cost more than everyone else artificially because other teams can't give them the same, or keep the Supermax but don't make it count the full amount towards the cap, just make it count the regular max. Now you allow the team building to be easier, but then I'm sure that the league office would be like, well, you've got the best of the best, so you can't. You're gonna have to make do with what's left. It's just that to me has always felt like the really silly one, and very very few of those super maxes have ever worked out. That seems to be the thing that kneecaps these teams. Is even a player as great as Giannis, we're kind of seeing in Milwaukee.
It's a great point. And when you're looking at the Supermax, like, Shea's hadn't kicked in yet, right?
Right.
So that's why they have the money to kind of, spend on all these other guys. It is going to get tight there in Oklahoma City once they have to fully extend Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren, and they're going to have the same problems everybody else does. I think the earlier you can win, like Tatum's number has gone way up, but Boston was competing for years before he got on the huge number, right? So the Supermax rules, in a way, I don't think it was intentional. It's actually kind of made the finals and like the championship chase. It's made it more of a younger man sport, right? Like where it's you're kind of getting guys competing when they're 24, 25, 26 instead of that traditional arc, which we used to expect where, you're 28, 29, 30, and that's where you're really going for it. So, that does feel like something that they might want to look at. I like your proposal of being able to give a Supermax so that a small market team could keep a megastar, like the Thunder would be able to pay Shea more than everybody else, but maybe it doesn't count against their books quite as much, so they're still able to build around him. I think that's a pretty sensible compromise, but again, the NBA is going to be years away from being able to put something like that in.
Oh, next time you talk to Adam Silver, just tell him to call me. Just give him my number. I'm happy to tell him. Last but not least, with Ben Golliver, national NBA reporter for the Washington Post. You mentioned LeBron a couple minutes ago. That seems to be the biggest smoking chimney that we're still waiting to see what exactly is cooking there. He obviously opted in, is like, give me the money. We'll figure it out later. And then there's a lot of different reporting of a lot of different things. Rich Paul, his agent, has said, we haven't talked to them all about trades, but we're monitoring the situation. Ben, when it's all said and done, where do you think LeBron James plays this season?
I think he will start the season in Los Angeles, but I think, the statement from Rich Paul and a lot of the buzz, it's coming from the fact that LeBron, he had to pick up his option. He didn't get a new contract. He didn't get an extension. Business did not unfold like it typically has for him, where, in past years with the Lakers, they've just always given him that future money and given him that security of having the extra year. And this time they didn't. And so that's an obvious signal. If you're going in as an expiring contract and you're a superstar level player like LeBron, that's an obvious signal that you need to go and explore your options because the Lakers didn't take care of you, right? And that's the first time they haven't done that. So I think it's reasonable for him to look around. I think the problem for him is the number of teams that he's actually going to want to play for with a chance to win a championship is very short, right? It's not a deep pool of contenders. And those contending teams already have number one guys in place, right? So he would have to fill a similar role like he does with the Lakers, where now it's Luka's team. And so that part gets really tricky. How many teams that are contenders want to blow up their cores to hand the keys to LeBron James at this point of his career? I think it's a really, really short list. And so I think ultimately, once everything shakes out, there's a lot of benefits to LeBron for playing in LA. He loves being on that stage. I live here in Los Angeles, like all the celebrities courtside, the actors, the rappers, the movie stars. He just likes being in that world. The Lakers are, of course, I think the most glamorous team in the league right now. I think he likes being one of the faces of that. They did, get the 3 seed. Like, they weren't bad last year. They got smoked in the playoffs, and obviously they need to, try to make some roster upgrades. And surely he's trying to apply some pressure on that front like he always does. But I think it's a very good fallback option, even if he doesn't have the financial security of a multi-year deal. But, what his next chapter looks like, I think that's still an open question. Like, he's flirted with retirement for years. I could see him thinking, well, hey, I'm still a top 10 guy. I was all NBA last year. Like, I should still be able to command a big contract. So I want to go somewhere where they're going to pay me. I could obviously see him, still trying to chase Jordan. He doesn't have the 6 rings. So that's always going to be a motivating factor. There's the family aspect where he's playing with Bronny, and, his next son is coming up. He's going to be draft eligible soon. You add all those things together, LeBron's got a lot of things that he needs to weigh. And in past decisions, he's decided, hey, LA is still the best spot. We'll see if that changes here next summer.
Going to be very, very interesting to follow. Ben Golliver, Washington Post, national NBA writer. Golliver, this was great. Thanks so much for doing it, and we'll talk to you here down the line.
Oh, it's my pleasure, man. Take care. Have a great weekend.
You as well, and happy holiday. Ben Golliver with us here on The Hoffman Show. When we get back, we got all kinds of comments, all kinds of stuff we've been talking about. So the comments are widely varied on our YouTube pages at Craig Hoffman and at the Team 980, which will make for a very fun edition of Never Read the Comments next. the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. It is a Thursday at 5:30, meaning in just a moment we will hit Never Read the Comments. Still to come on the show, though, we have coming up at 6 o'clock, Josh Kendall wrote a piece in The Athletic discussing the current status and future of AI in football, and specifically the NFL. I think it's important to say, like, both, because most teams are already using AI in some way. Some are pretty rudimentary and simple. Some are getting a little more complex. But I think, a lot of you are, we live in Washington, D.C. This is one of the more innovative, progressive. I don't mean necessarily just politically, although, like, look at a voting map. This shouldn't be breaking news to anyone. But like progressive in the definitional sense of the word cities. There are consulting firms and government and all these really, top of the line companies and industries that are using AI already. So I don't have to tell many of you listening that, like, AI is not the future. There is a huge amount of work to do to make AI a lot better and more efficient and accurate and all those things in the future. Like, it's going to evolve in what it can do, but there is AI here right now. And the NFL is certainly an industry that's looking at it, and a company that's looking at it and is like, how can this help us? And it's already doing some pretty cool stuff. So Josh Kendall is going to tell us more about that coming at 6 o'clock. And then 6:15, a fun discussion that we'll have on the back end of that about some of the things I worry about with AI specific to football, some of which are also like worries about the world. I'm sure that's what you want right before your weekend. Craig's worries about the world, but I promise it'll all make sense. Coming up at 6 o'clock. Right now, your worries. Never read the comments style. Ben, hit it.
We tried to warn them. They didn't listen. Yeah! Every week, the Hoffman Show goes into the belly of the beast.
We read those comments, baby.
Never read the comments.
All right, we got a couple of different topics to get to today. This is, by the way, Ben, who for some reason we can't figure out how to get on video today, but that's fine. Disembodied voice, Ben. This is your first ever Never Read the Comments. Are you excited?
I have no idea what to expect. It's
Okay.
kind of exciting. I mean, it's a little terrifying.
When you do Locked On Wizards, I'm sure you get YouTube comments on that channel, right?
Oh, yeah, lots of them.
Yeah, so, I mean, imagine just reading some of those on the air and responding to them and knowing that they can't argue back.
Let's do it.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. So last week on Never Read the Comments, we always try to start off with like an appetizer, Ben, if you will, something to just kind of get the juices going a little bit before we dive into quote-unquote real content. But, I said a comment that we'll get sometimes, they should make podcast equipment more expensive. It's like a very stupid thing. I'm like, what do you want? Just a bunch of rich people to do podcasts? And DJ Walker, 4308, latched onto that and goes, making the cost of podcast equipment more expensive obviously raises the entry barrier, so you would think one would be more dedicated to the craft. I know that's not likely how it would work in real life, but it would stop a lot of idiots from picking up microphones. And I think that's very wrong. It would just be rich people who don't have to put in much effort getting microphones. So while, yes, just a higher barrier of entry would mean less podcasts, less saturation, the quality, I think, would drop. Now, I think the counter argument to that would be, what if we made it all professional grade? It's like, no, you can't just buy podcast equipment. It's not about money. It's like you have to have a corporate account. You have to be a real media company. And then it's only the professionals or like athletes or, entertainers, whoever, who like really are putting in the time. But then the comment making it more expensive on my stuff where I am a professional, that still wouldn't make sense. So Ben, the point is of our little appetizer today is that I still feel very validated and correct.
But like, think about it this way. You're going to define podcast equipment. Like, what if I'm using my camera on the laptop that I use to do other things, and there's a microphone included on the laptop, and I have a YouTube account to post a video of me talking. That's still considered a podcast.
Yeah, I think we should license it. Like, you
can't post a video of you talking about sports unless you're licensed now.
Yeah, right. Like, that's what we should do. Like, you can't drive a car without a license. I don't want your opinion on anything unless you have a license to talk about that thing. Unless you can call into the show. Maybe we'll call it, I don't know, radio. We'll do it live. I love how we reverse engineer things sometimes. Anyway, the point is that was a fun little banter. There was lots of crying, laughing emojis. I don't know why that just tongue twisted me so bad. Crying, laughing emojis. So it's all in good fun, but that is one of my least favorite comments I get on like TikToks and such, where it's like, oh, they should make podcast equipment more expensive. Like, no, they shouldn't. They should make. They should also license who can comment on TikTok. But that's
That'd make my
story.
job a lot harder if they made it expensive.
Yeah, I mean, look, man, I've been working in radio a decade, so I hear you. We had a really fun discussion on Take Command as we dive into the actual content here on Never Read the Comments. We had a really fun discussion on Take Command about who are the top developmental pieces for the Commanders. And Logan and I talked it through, and I think we kind of decided, like, Jaden has graduated out of the developmental stage. Sainer still, with how well he played last year and how important he is. Like, he's kind of at a different level. But that got a lot of, the guys that we did name had a lot of different interesting responses. This one from Coup de Forne, at least that's how I'm going with the French pronunciation, I70 says, Newton, as in Jerzon Newton, was a great pick. They were lucky to get him. He was an outstanding rusher in college, playing in a conference known for great defensive linemen. Anyone who has written him off is a total moron. The comments are always very light, Ben. Total moron. Did Chris Russell write this? Anyway, he had a serious injury. He lost important developmental time in camp. Look at how he started to show good performance in the second half of the season. Rookies need time to develop. Opinions are worthless unless they are rooted in facts. This is a good video. Yay, we did it. Hopefully, the coaches will make sure McCaffrey and Sinnott will have reasonable opportunities to develop this year. They need more targets than last year. And what I would say is, first of all, thank you for the kind words, and thank you for agreeing with us that Johnny Newton has a huge potential, because the point that Logan and I made was that, like, he is the top of the list in part because we think he has the highest upside. Him and obviously the first rounder from this year, Josh Connerly. It's like, man, those guys could be real stars. Those guys could turn into top 5 at their position type players. They have the attributes, the characteristics to do that if they reach their potential. With Connerly, I think it's a bigger question, because he needs to change his body a little bit, needs to get a lot stronger, but he has the frame to do it, and there's a lot of projection there. With Newton, it is consistency and health, and he's got kind of the build and everything, the quickness to be able to do that. So if he can just get a little bit stronger, as he will just as he gets older and obviously lifts weights more in the league, and then understands leverage and all that, I think Jerzon Newton could be a really, really high-level disruptive player. When it comes to guys like McCaffrey and Sinnott, the idea that they need to be given more opportunities, that is where I disagree. They need to earn more opportunities. And if they have the springs that they had, they'll be perfectly fine. And in that mix, Sinnott was making some plays. Not a ton. He was also banged up a little bit. He was wearing the black injury jersey for much of camp in the spring. But, like, who cares? There's not a lot of contact anyway. McCaffrey was all over the place making plays, and he just looked a lot faster. So if those guys do that, what they need to do on those fronts, they do hard work on the practice field. They do the extra work on the practice field after the organized stuff. They're in the meeting rooms, being participatory, asking smart questions. They're taking care of their bodies, and they just do their jobs at a high level. They'll get more opportunities. But I think we talk about this a lot with the developmental guys, this is why they're later picks. If they were home runs, they would have been first-round picks. In Sinnott's case, you're hoping it happens pretty quick because he's a second-round pick. But Sinnott was a guy that was taken based off of what his upside could be, not based off his readiness. Some second-round picks, they have a lower upside, high readiness. Some have high upside, low readiness. That is where Sinnott falls. McCaffrey has a lower upside, and I think because of his pedigree, people thought he had a pretty high readiness, but that's not who he is. Like, Luke is a guy that was playing quarterback at Nebraska like 3-4 years ago. He's a learning receiver, nevertheless learning receiver in the NFL. He kind of gets drafted based off his upside, not based off his readiness. They know the work ethic, they know the person, they know the athletic profile, but he needed to learn a lot. It looks like he has, and hopefully he can be a bigger factor here in year 2 as well. As for Sinnott, this one from Major Bolden 8589. WTF, good thing I remembered to abbreviate that because we're licensed by the FCC, and I don't feel like getting thrown off the air today. WTF for these comments. Ben's going to take a big step on the field. I really want to see what McGee and Owens could be on our defense. I don't know if Luke had any nepotism. He comes from a football family. The pedigree and competitive culture is there. I think he's going to be a great number 4. I think, again, Luke McCaffrey, if he's a number 4, like a consistent number 4, makes plays when asked, and because the thing is with the number 4 receiver, you're rotating in. You're not just out there in 4 wide receiver sets. You're playing the X sometimes. So you might be replacing Terry on some plays. You're replacing Debo as a Z on some plays as an outside guy, or you're playing in complement to Debo when he's inside some. Not as much as the third guy on the depth chart necessarily, and that would be probably Noah Brown, but you are in that rotation in the 4th heaviest number of snaps. So you're playing. Maybe he earns more than that. And I think if he's a 4 this year and a good special teams player, and he's up to a 3 and hopefully a starter by the time he's in year 4, like a number 2 type of guy, like that's a great late 3rd round pick. And I think that's the other thing too, is you got to remember where these guys are drafted is going to be some level predictive of how well they are. There's always exceptions, and you always want positive exceptions. But it is something to consider, which I think is also relevant for McGee and Owens. Like, Tyler Owens is an undrafted free agent. If all he ever is a dope special teams player who is really impactful, that's a great UDFA because he stayed in the league. Those guys aren't supposed to make it. Nevertheless, if he develops into something defensively, which we'll see, he had a decent preseason last year, but mostly against guys who were no longer in the league once final roster cuts were made. McGee is the one that I think holds the key. If Jordan McGee can develop into a starter, and he can prove that here in year 2 after missing most of year 1 injured or banged up, then you feel a lot better about what happens post Bobby Wagner. If not, you got to figure that out. Because while they have some other guys, the Kane Madranos, the Dominique Hamptons, they're developing in that linebacker spot. It's really McGee who is not only is he the backup Mike already in terms of depth, he's hopefully your guy for the future. And I think his ceiling is pretty good. Last one on the football side of things. This was a fun question. So we did our coach rankings on today's edition of Take Command. So in your feed right now, if you have not refreshed it since this morning, brand new episode of Take Command where we rank all of the coaches. We did our position group rankings last week on top of our mailbags that we've been doing. But we ranked the head coaches, then the OCs, then the DCs. And Carrot, spelled with a K, Carrot Man says, "Hey, Craig, any thoughts on throwing GMs into the coaches ranking pod?" To be honest, Carrot Man, no, we didn't have that thought. But I like it, and so I'm going to do it here and never read the comments. I think it depends on how you want to count the general manager of the Dallas Cowboys, and I'll explain that in a second. If you count it as Jerry Jones and all that is Jerry Jones, he's 4th. Like, even Joe Shane, I think some of the stuff Joe Shane has done has been much maligned, but actually wasn't the worst decision. And I think that he's had a couple of nice hits. Tyrone Tracy last year. Obviously, Neighbors is a stud. I like some of the things they did this year in the draft and what they did in free agency. Like, the overall plan, I got real questions about. I'm not saying Joe Shane is a good GM or has done a good job as GM, but you compare that to the incredible self-sabotage of Jerry Jones, and I think you rank Shane 3rd. Obviously, Howie Roseman is 1st, and then Adam Peters is 2nd. If you want to say the general manager, if you want to put more of a scouting edge on this and say, okay, we're going to take out Jerry Jones's complete mismanagement of resources, the trades he makes, the incredible ability to screw up his own contracts extension-wise. We did it with Dak. He did it with CD. He's doing it right now with Micah Parsons. And you want to consider for this exercise to have a more interesting discussion, the general manager, in air quotes, to be Will McClay, the Cowboys director of personnel, who runs their draft every single year. Then I think you're talking about the Cowboys and McClay being 2nd. He has been awesome for a long time. And while I like so much of what Adam has done, the consistent success that McClay has had, I think you have to give it to him over Peters, in part because the resume is just longer. And it's just as good, if not better, even if you were to just go on averages. Like, his hit rate in the draft is crazy. The problem is that when those guys come up, his hits come up for second contracts, the Cowboys mismanage the asset time and time again. And obviously, Jerry adds a lot of distraction to the team. That has been a thing. The coaching hires have been questionable at best. And so I think if you look at like Howie obviously has the best roster in football. They've done a good job with the coaching hires, and anything else that a GM's got to do, Howie Roseman is basically crushed. Their cap situation is really good. It helps that they have an owner who is willing to pay a ton up front in cash. Adam Peters, I think, is second if you take the totality of it. Third, Shane, and then fourth, Jerry Jones and the Cowboys. So there's my NFC East GM rankings, shrunk down into a never read the comments bite size versus a full take command episode length. Ben, any nits to pick with my rankings there?
I think you hit it there. Obviously, Adam Peters has to be 2 at the moment. It's way too early. And then you have the GM of Howie Roseman, who just won the Super Bowl and has continued to seemingly fleece everyone in the NFL at the same time. So no problems there. I guess maybe the only thing people would question with you is putting Jones at 4 instead of 3, given what New York's situation is like. But Jerry Jones is one of the worst GMs in football right now.
It's just hard to separate like owner Jerry from, because like if there was someone else going to the owner being like, hey man, can we pay this guy? And the owner was like, no, would you put that on the GM? When it's the same guy, you kind of just do. And so if you want to put New York 4th, I'm not going to fight you. Joe Shane has had a rough go of it. But I also feel like he's been dealt a pretty bad hand at times. And some of that was stuff he inherited. So and obviously Hard Knocks and the way the Saquon stuff went down just soured everybody on him. But I actually also, again, I've said this a million times, I don't think that was the wrong move for the Giants necessarily, because a good running back is ice cream or even toppings on top of a sundae, and the Giants don't have bowls. All right. Other big topic in the comments this week over on the Hoffman W Sports YouTube page was on our Caitlin Clark discussion. We had a couple, actually, and they're all related. First, we had a conversation with the Athletics' Ben Pickman. He and his colleague, our friend Sabrina Merchant, did some reporting that Caitlin Clark is worth over $1 billion to the WNBA. And in that discussion, we were talking about the upcoming CBA negotiations. And one thing that Ben said in there that drew the comment that I'm about to read is that they're not going to do what MLS has done. MLS has created like these designated player exceptions where like Lionel Messi just gets to make more and have like an ownership stake in the TV deal or whatever he's got. That's just different. They did similar stuff for David Beckham back in the day. And so they created these loopholes that allow certain players to essentially break the CBA salary cap rules because they want the stars in MLS, and that's the only way they can compete with the leagues over in Europe. So HP67897 says, Ben, as in Ben Pickman, is looking at this wrong, and that's why I take his reporting with a grain of salt, which editorial interjection. You shouldn't take his reporting with a grain of salt. It actually proves the point you're trying to make, but the point you're trying to make is very silly, so I'm also not surprised. There needs to be a Caitlin rule. All they've admitted in this podcast, again, we're a radio show. We're not a podcast. Anyway, all they've admitted in this radio show is her value, and yet she isn't being treated as such by the organization and most definitely not by the players. If the players want fairness, then it starts with the one who has generated close to $1 billion for them. There's a fact. Remove the feelings out of it. The W and the union need to get serious about that. The numbers don't lie. People do. Numbers can lie. There's lies, damned lies, and statistics. That is another famous phrase that has to do with numbers and lying. Like, numbers provide or like need context. Yes. Has Caitlin generated over $1 billion for the WNBA? Yes. Is that more than everybody else? Yes. Has Asia Wilson also probably produced some astronomical number for the league? Absolutely. Are there other players that have generated a lot of revenue for the league? Absolutely. Is that kind of what it means to be in a union and be a part of a collective? Yes. And also, what is Caitlin going to do? Go out in her driveway or go out in an arena and full of fanatical people who just want to see her shoot a basketball and play against no one? Is she going to play Beat the Pro, which is a game you play that's when you're by yourself? Like, is she just going to do like her own little 3-point contest? Like, what do you think this is? It's a 5-on-5. You need the whole league to exist for her to make the money for the league. And while, yes, she deserves a lot of money. She is getting a lot of money, by the way, from sponsors. She is perfectly well compensated generally speaking, compared to the average American. But within the context of her league, yes, she's underpaid. Add her to the list. LeBron James, Michael Jordan. Were underpaid their entire careers as basketball superstars. Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, same thing. This is kind of how it works in leagues that have max salary. And should Caitlin be a max player the second she's eligible? Hell yeah. And she will. And I hope the CBA negotiations go really well so that can happen. Could you make an argument that there's no salary cap, and if owners want to pay a gajillion dollars to have Caitlin Clark, they can bid over her services without an artificial cap on it? Sure, but that's going to come with other repercussions that are unforeseen. Like, this is just kind of how it works when you're a part of a larger system. And basketball, by the nature of it not being a singular thing, it's not like she's playing golf and she could go just be like, hey, watch me versus the course. Like, this is how it goes. And again, I hope that she gets as much as possible. She deserves it. But some of this, like, oh, the players hate her. This, like, that stuff, it's just this, like, Caitlin Clark victim complex that I don't understand because it's not true. And that actually leads us to the last comment here, where I'm glad this thing was said, because it was a missing piece of our talk the other day about Caitlin and her being the 9th voted guard amongst players in the WNBA All-Star voting. And the way it was framed was not clarified to me until after the show. And why so many people were saying what this comment says until I saw it from a media outlet phrased this way. So, Gombanian25 says, just 2 questions. If Caitlin Clark is the 9th rated guard in the WNBA, why are they guarding her at 94 feet and blitzing her when she comes across midcourt more than all the rest of the guards in the league put together? Why are they grabbing and trying to disable her by stabbing her in the eye? Why? One, when you play hard in basketball, sometimes things happen. And those of you that have apparently never played basketball really would sound a lot smarter and be more welcome in the discussions if you'd stop bringing up the fact that twice in her life, Caitlin Clark, or maybe 3 times in her life, as a WNBA player, has been poked in the eye. It happens. It's not intentional, whatever. As for the blitzing her 94 feet and, like, why are they doing this if she's only the 9th best guard? I'm really glad this was brought up this way, because she wasn't rated the 9th best guard. She was voted to have had the 9th best season so far. And again, the voting of that is even complicated because you only actually rank 4 players on your ballot if you're a player. And so a lot of players left Clark off. And so the total at the end was 9th. But that's not even beside the point. She's played in 9 of the 16 or 17 games that the Fever have played. She's shooting less than 30% from 3, less than 40% from the field, and she leaves the WNBA by turnovers by a mile. I think if she keeps up her current turnover pace, she'll be like one of the WNBA's all-time leaders in turnovers by the end of her 5th season or something like that. It is preposterous how much she's turning the basketball over. And part of that is because the defensive schemes are putting a lot of pressure on her and making her life very difficult, and they're finding ways to guard one of the best players in the league, and the results are that she hasn't made that adjustment yet. She very well might. She's incredible. As I said during the segment the other day, she could finish top 10 in MVP voting this year if she turns it on in the second half of the season, and the Fever, are making a run at the top seed or one of the top 3 seeds in the playoff bracket. Like, that's all perfectly reasonable. But she wasn't rated the 9th best guard. Through the first half of 2025, she was rated to have had the 9th best season. And that is a very fair argument based off her production. That production is not static. It could improve. And it would be really nice if folks would stop intentionally missing the point. And I will even cut some of the fans a break if they are reading this crap from media outlets who are inflaming this stuff on purpose for clicks. So looking at you, Just Women's Sports, who did this the other day. Like, what are you doing? If you want validity in the media space, and if you want to be credible, stop being wrong, because that's not what happened. And now I understand, I think, a little bit more why some fans seem to be confused about this, but that's the explanation, is that she wasn't rated the 9th best guard. She is having the 9th best season, which is maybe even generous based off the season that she's had so far. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And when we get back, we somehow go from all of that to talking about artificial intelligence in the NFL. The Hoffman Show, we're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, and now live on iHeartRadio and TuneIn as well. Of course, still live on YouTube at the Team 980 if you want to watch us on the video side. 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. every day, all those places, including the YouTube. You can watch Kevin Sheehan on the Kevin Sheehan Show, or you can just keep listening right now because Kevin's with us. We got the daily double of uniforms and stadium to talk about. And Kevin, you've been on top of all the uniform reporting. You've had some sources tell you some things along the way here. And we finally got an announcement from the team that there will be the alternate uniforms announced. The Hoffman Show, we're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app and now on iHeartRadio and TuneIn as well. Of course, streaming live on the video side on YouTube, where you see Josh Kendall, who's a writer for The Athletic, and he sought out to answer at least part of one of the biggest questions in sports right now. How's AI going to affect insert your favorite sport here? And of course, for this conversation, Josh, you focused on the NFL. And you know, that is one of the biggest questions, I think, for all of us in every industry. It's like, how is AI going to affect us? What particular thing made you interested in the NFL side of this, and what was kind of your dive-in point to start exploring this topic?
Well, my dive-in point was, like everybody else, I've heard, AI is coming for all of our jobs. AI is eventually going to be able to do basically everything we do better than we do it. So I started thinking about a future in which AI is, not that it would ever happen necessarily, but a future in which AI is calling plays on a Sunday or a Monday night or whatever. That's not ever going to happen. The NFL rules already prohibit that. I started thinking, does the NFL need to start legislating against AI now to prevent something like that happening? But the rules already take care of that. But the road, once I got started down the road, I realized there are a ton of people out there who are trying really hard to figure out how AI between Monday and Saturday can give them a competitive advantage. And I think you're starting to see a lot of hires around the league. The Raiders are one of the leaders, I think, in that. But lots of people are starting to come along that show you that teams are poking around. Some are deeper into the water than others. Some are just getting started. Some still, I think are wait and see. But this is coming. And the league at this point and the coaches at this point are just trying to figure out how it can best help them.
How many teams do you feel like, or if you want to use percentages, however you want to answer this numerically, like how many of them are using AI to try to be more efficient in things they already do versus trying to innovate and get ahead?
So Thomas Dimitroff, former Falcons general manager, worked for a company called Somer Sports, which is one of the companies out there that's trying to innovate in this space. Thomas no longer works for them, but he did for a while, and he was sort of their NFL liaison. So his estimate was 75% of teams are using AI right now, but it's vastly different in terms of what they're using it for and how much they're using it. And one of the things that was interesting in all the people I talked to, specifically a guy named Ryan Paganetti, who's Pete Carroll hired this offseason as something called a head coach research specialist. But it's essentially an artificial intelligence coordinator or a technology coordinator, a liaison between all this stuff that's out there in this world and the coaching staff and finding the sweet spot for blending those two. And he said, and several other people said, there's a huge amount of secrecy in this world. When an opponent hires a linebackers coach, you know what that guy is doing. He's coaching the linebackers. But we're starting to see a lot of hires in the analytics space, but you don't know what your division opponent is doing in the analytics space, and you don't want them to know what you're doing. Talked to a guy who runs another one of these AI companies, and he said he was at the Sloan Analytics Conference several years ago, and lots of NFL teams are asking to meet with him, but they're asking to meet in the furthest hall away from the conference room, or they're asking to meet at the Starbucks across the street. They don't even want to know, they don't want their opponents to know that they're talking to him. And when they talk to him, they don't even tell him what they're trying to figure out. They're just asking for certain data points. They don't even want to tell him what they're seeking out. So I think that there's going to be a real cloak and dagger aspect to this as teams try to figure out what exactly is the most valuable way to implement it.
I laughed pretty hard at that anecdote, Josh, because it is perfectly NFL to be like, oh my God, we have to be so secretive. Yes. We'll go to the Starbucks across the street. No one will find us there. And it's like, You couldn't even go to like some kind of coffee shop 2 blocks away. It's the literal Starbucks across the street, and I feel like that's perfectly NFL.
That's not great subterfuge. I will admit
that. That's a good word. Josh Kendall with us wrote about AI in the NFL, what's here, what's coming for the Athletic. And I think the thing, as someone who, like, I've used AI a little bit for various things on the show, and my wife uses it a lot in her job. Like, I have some baseline understanding of what AI can do and how it works, in that it's ultimately pulling from the data that already exists. And then there's now the predictive generative type stuff where it's trying to predict the future. But how do coaches or these technology folks talk about kind of the game theory of it all? It's like, okay, if AI can predict tendencies that I don't even know exist, then maybe I could break them. Like, what's the human element here to continue to try to innovate and stay in front of this stuff from a competitive standpoint?
I think efficiency. I think you're right. You're looking for things that you don't know to look for yet, and I think that a lot of people in this space say that artificial intelligence, which is essentially just brute computing force at this point, there is not a ton of.
Right.
This is not a computer that's making decisions on its own. This is machine learning at an incredibly high level. So the large language models, which run like ChatGPT, they can essentially type out stuff because they have inputted so much data that they can predict what the next word should be based on all of this data that they have. That's how they write. Well, you're increasingly, a lot of people believe, going to be able to do that sort of relational comparison based on computer vision and the things you see on film. So you can input all of the film. A computer can watch all of this film that exists and dump out tons of information, some stuff you didn't even know to be looking for. So it's just more and better information at this point. We are not into the science fiction world yet, where although some of it feels science fiction-y. I mean, you're very close to having computer voiced artificial intelligence agents who can watch film alongside a coach and have a conversation with the coach. That certainly feels very science fiction-y. But these computers are not making decisions. They're just computing data at a rate that we can't really comprehend right now.
Right. And just as an example, we were having some fun this morning. I mentioned my wife uses, AI models and such for her job, which is totally outside of sports, but she's pretty good at using it. And we're kind of running the thought experiment. Like, okay, what if you had to come up with a game plan just based off, and she's using like regular old ChatGPT for this. Yeah. And we had some fun with it. And it was both really impressive in what it pulled, but also didn't realize that De'Ami Brown and a couple of other players were no longer on the Commanders roster. And so, this is where it gets fun, is when teams have their own models and kind of their own contained versions where they control more of the inputs, and it has things like film. And one thing that you talked about in the piece is these Hawkeye cameras, the 8K cameras that are coming. What do folks think around the league that how those incredibly specific motion capture 8K cameras, how can that change the inputs to create better outputs, and what kind of outputs do they think are possible based off that?
Well, it will only change it if the league gives that data to teams. And right now the league doesn't plan on it. Right now the league is going to keep all of that footage to itself. I think I wonder if in the future that might change, because the better, like any of this stuff, the more and the better data you put in, the more you'll get out of it. Computer vision right now, as you mentioned, a ChatGPT, artificial intelligence can print out a 15, you can go tell it to script you 15 play script.
We actually did that, Josh, and it was like, oh, this is, I'd be happy with these play calls.
Exactly. So given the advancement that we see in these technologies, where it becomes exponential. So right now, the computer doesn't know that De'Ami Brown's not a Commander anymore. We're going to work, they're going to work all those bugs out, and it could get better and better to where that 15 play script is just as good as any coach could write. But the computer vision right now still has trouble sorting linemen. It's a lot better. It's a lot cleaner in basketball. You see a lot of computer vision stuff in basketball. It's a lot cleaner because the spacing is a lot better. Computers still have trouble figuring out guys grouped close together and piled on top of each other. That's the next hurdle for the computer vision. Once it figures that out, and I think everybody assumes that it will eventually, you're gonna take another big step.
Josh Kendall with us from The Athletic here on the Hoffman Show, talking about AI in football. His piece on The Athletic is excellent. And I'd also recommend another piece of work from The Athletic to complement this. Your colleague, my pal Robert Mays, had Sam Schwartzstein on The Athletic Football Show earlier this week. Sam is in charge of a lot of the technology and the analytics and such for Thursday Night Football and Amazon and their, like all the blitz IDs and stuff that folks see when they watch Thursday Night Football. Sam's in charge of all of that stuff. And one thing that he talked about that I thought was really interesting that you also touched on, which is where we'll wrap, is the buy-in of coaches. He said that when he talks to people around the league, their whole mission is like, how do we get this stuff on film? Because that's what coaches will look. If we give them spreadsheets, we give them other data, we give them whatever, there's only so much it's going to get. How do we implement this stuff into film? And that's been successful. When you talk to coaches or analytics folks around the league, how do you think the buy-in is going to go amongst coaches? And for coaches that maybe are a little slow, like, are they going to quickly find themselves without jobs because they're just resistant to the new evolving landscape?
I think so. There's some of all of that's going to be true. Thomas Dimitroff, who I mentioned earlier, he says, he gave a lot of presentations for this product to NFL coaches. And he says they're on the edge of their seat. They would love for this stuff to make their job more efficient, make their job easier, maybe cut down on some of their grunt work hours. They're all for it. They believe in it, but it has to be presented to them in a way that they understand and can implement quickly. You get to a point, if it's too complicated or if it's too glitchy, that you get to a point where they're like, nope, all right, I'm out. See you next year. Come back next year when it's better, when I can understand it better. So that's where the technology people are at this point. They're trying to get to whatever that magic tipping point is, where the coaches get it, where the coaches understand it, where they can get the most value out of it. It's why you're seeing some of these hires, like Ryan Paganetti in Las Vegas, as a bridge. You're going to have to hire a bridge, and you're going to have to hire technological people who are not only smart enough to do it, but know enough of the game and of the coaching side of it to communicate it in the right way. These are not cheap hires. These are not, you're not hiring, basic office staff. You're hiring Google type engineers. You're gonna have to pay those type of salaries. So some of it's going to be which owners believe in it enough to invest at that level. But I do think that obviously that buy-in is the critical juncture. Who is going to accept it, understand it, and implement it in the most efficient way. And that's yet to be seen. That's where we are. We're at the very beginning of that process.
For sure. And Robert talked about this, the large language models, and how if you can take it from, I have to sort a whole bunch of filters and you have to teach a coach how to do that, versus they can just type in, show me the numbers on third down against two high shells, and it becomes like this prompt. It just is a lot easier to use. So again, definitely read Josh's piece on The Athletic. And again, if you want a kind of a supplemental listen to this on an even deeper dive, although Josh gets a lot of stuff in his piece, check out The Athletic Football Show with Robert Mays and Sam Schwartzstein. Highly recommend that as well. Josh, thanks so much for doing this. Appreciate it. And we'll talk to you down the line.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, this is DA, and you're listening to The Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.
It's Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Now also streaming on iHeartRadio and TuneIn. Of course, you can watch the show on YouTube at the Team 980. Coming up at 6:30, so actually probably about 6:35. Got some stuff we want to talk about here. Our weekend preview, which is still somehow brought to you by nobody. Just like Ben, that's a running joke on the show. It's like EJ's Nito stat of the night on Inside. Brought to you by nobody. So it's our weekend preview. But we do it anyway because we got to get people set for what is a long holiday weekend. All right, I do want to follow up, though, on the conversation we just had with Josh Kendall. And we're talking about AI in the NFL. And the NFL has already done something that I think is really important, which is to say, you can't use AI to call your plays on Sundays. And I think that's really important because this still, like, the fun of this is that it's a sport played and coached by human beings. And if we want to use AI to make the human beings better, I am all for that. So, for instance, if you would currently have to have some quality control coach go through film and say, oh my God, all right, every 3rd and 7 plus where the defense is in a cover 2 shell, I need all those clips. And they've got to go through every single game and pull it like it used to be, right? You have to go through every single game, pull it out, splice it together. Then it became digital. Okay, now the splicing part is easier. Then you had all these sorting tools, and you have like PFF Ultimate and some of these things that teams have access to that they can sort, and they can click a couple of boxes, and that cut up happens pretty quickly, but you still got to do it. And what's going to happen when like the long language learning software is better is just like those of you that have used ChatGPT or whatever, like Cliff Kingsbury himself, without going to some quality control coach, can be like, give me every 3rd down, 3rd and 7, or 3rd down with 7 plus to go, where the defense is in a cover 2 shell, and with really, really high accuracy, they can do it. And I think the other part of that like AI I'm for and is cool is as the technology gets better and it is able to watch film as opposed to just have like sort through a data set, which is what AI is really good at right now. Once we get to the point that it can watch the film, it will be able to do that without someone having to sort it. Because right now, still, you have coaches or people at the league or who at PFF, whoever's doing it, that has to catalog it. That says, okay, this play is 3rd down, this play is 7 plus, or this play is 8. That gets, through a computerized, be like, oh, 8 is more than 7. Okay, cool, got that. That goes in the 7 plus category when someone searches for it. And here's the coverage. Like, you have to log all of it on the input side. Eventually, that's going to become much faster, and just they'll be able to, based off spatial identification of player data, and even probably it could do some of this based off the dots, especially on coverages. So it can take the 2D models, and you're just like, when the safeties are here, that's a cover 2 shell. Like, you can do all that. And so I'm all for that part. What I don't want is then the strategy and all that kind of stuff to be done by computers, because that becomes an engineering contest, not football coaching. And like Formula One, which I love, is an engineering contest. The drivers on a dry race actually have only so much input. Yes, they can make mistakes. Yes, they can cost tenths here or there, but ultimately the limiting factor is often the car. That sport is an engineering contest. That's not what football is. That's not what the NFL is. And there is going to be some of that. There is going to be the ability to say, based off this down and distance, time, score, personnel, and each team will be able to customize it. They'll be able to teach their own models, say like, hey, these are our strengths, or it will be able to learn the strengths based off of things that happen. It will be self-teaching, and then it will be like, okay, here's a game plan. And a coach can be like, okay, now I take this game plan and I have to go implement it. And that will still always be the separator, right? How well you can teach a game plan, how well you can teach technique will always be a factor. And AI can't do that. AI could help with that. AI could give you different ways to teach something, could give you ideas. It could you could use AI to make yourself a better teacher if you take its feedback. But ultimately, you have to do it. And Sam Schwartzstein, who was a center at Stanford for Andrew Luck and is now, who I referenced in the Josh Kendall interview, doing Amazon Prime's like digital analytics type of stuff, he talked about how the AI can tell you on film, like, oh, that's a 2-eye versus a shade, and this is what should happen on the play. But what it can't teach me is how I need to play the technique to be able to, when it's a 2-eye versus a shade when I'm a center. But by this half a yard alignment difference between a shade and a 2-eye, like how I approach that block, a reach block, for instance, changes. That still is going to have the players. So there will be some schematic and strategy stuff. I don't love that, but I accept that it's part of the game. But here's the bigger thing that I wonder long term, and this is a more universal non-football question when it comes to artificial intelligence, which is if we are able to use AI to replace a lot of grunt work. So 5 minutes ago when I started this whole diatribe, I talked about how currently some quality control coach has to go find the thing that Cliff Kingsbury is looking for. When we replace that guy with AI, where do our assistant position coaches come from? And what do they do? And then what do our position coaches come from? And then our coordinators, then our head coaches. Because doing the grunt work is necessary often to learn the things you need later, right? By putting in the time on the lower levels, you learn what you need at the upper levels. And so if we take away the grunt work, it's kind of like taking away school. And by the way, we're seeing this in academics right now. Like, this is a huge problem that is starting to be studied, and the results are horrifying. MIT put out a study, I think it was last week, that like they studied kids' brains, and like these kids are writing college essays and they don't remember anything about what they turned in because they just had ChatGPT do it. They didn't even bother to read the thing. They didn't learn anything. And thus we are like, you have kids that are producing fine in terms of the content, but they have no problem solving skills. And now I sound like an old man yelling at a cloud, but like, this is a serious thing we have to consider as a society. Nevertheless, that the NFL has to consider in terms of its coaching pipeline.
Can I give you a personal anecdote on this, actually?
Sure. Ben,
with the academic stuff?
fresh out of school, was at Maryland this time last year.
So it's such a problem academically, especially in universities, because universities, you get a mixed bag of individuals and students. You have people that really want to learn and utilize the paid education to their advantage and take it very seriously. And then you have people that are there just to get the degree. And those are the people that will use ChatGPT to use for everything, write essays with it. It's such a problem that now professors are having to use these AI detectors in order to scan work that people turn in. However, the problem with them, they're so inaccurate. The AI detectors have no idea how to differentiate AI from actually good writing.
Like everyone freaked out about the M-dash, right? And I was like, I use the M-dash all the time because I'm a nerd. Like, that's not a giveaway. That, like, if I got flagged for that, I'd be like, no, that's how I write. Like,
it writes, like, AI writes a certain way, but if you are
you can teach it to write a certain way. You can literally be like, write this in this voice, and it will figure it out.
If you're a good writer, you will write the way that AI will often structure sentences, which is why the detectors will flag it, and then you get to the problem where kids who are using AI aren't getting caught because the detector can't figure it out, or kids who don't use it are getting their work flagged because the things just can't figure it out. There's no real definitive way to do it.
Right, and then the bigger problem that like is off of that is like the grades and the fairness is one thing, and that's what people focus on because it's here and it's now, but like the world is filled with problems. Or if we just want to keep it to football, right, and not go on like this bigger thing, right? Football presents problems that have to be solved. And like the problems are the defenses, the problems are the offenses, depending on which side of the ball you're on, schematically who you're facing. And understanding the options available to you and how to problem solve, like, is what sports and competition is about. The point is to compete and for the humans to compete and us to watch it and enjoy these really bright people teaching these really incredible athletes and then to watch them do the thing. And like, we are just losing the essence of that because we can with technology. And that is what I am concerned about, is that we are going to get to this like monotonous state of football, or that we won't, because the AI models will be so smart that it can actually figure out like what is the best specific use for Travis Hunter, who's this like unicorn athlete, or for this guy or that guy. But like, I'd rather a person figure that out. And like, I will say, there is part of me that's excited about that, because we've seen coaches ruin players. And if we can have more players find success, it's ultimately about the athletes. But like how one of the, I guess this is where I'll wrap up. One of the advantages that is going to happen in sports is in the same way that when analytics started entering sports and just like more statistical information, the teams that got ahead are the teams that knew how to use it well, and that were able to develop talent around that and pay for talent. And that is exactly what's going to happen with AI. Teams that are going to use AI well are going to get ahead. The teams that are willing to pay, and compete with Google and those types, and Apple for engineers on a pay scale, those teams are going to do well. And the other teams are going to get left behind. And the teams that can still, while using AI, find other uses for smart people to develop their talent and the next generation of coach, that's who's going to get ahead. And that's going to be fun. That part of it is fun to watch, but I do think it is fraught with a whole bunch of issues, and those issues are certainly not unique to the NFL. When we get back, our weekend preview brought to you by nobody. It's Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. Also, remember, we're now streaming live on iHeartRadio and TuneIn Radio, and our podcast available everywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. All right, it's time for our weekend preview, which is brought to you by nobody. Anthony left. We still can't get a sponsor. It's okay. Anthony will be back on Monday. Strober doing a great job filling in this week. But this is the part of the show, Ben. Can you guess what happens during the weekend preview?
No.
Well, that's very silly. Now I have questions about if you use ChatGPT in college, because we preview the weekend. We take a look at everything that's going to go on in sports. And it's, it's early because it's only Thursday, but we start off with the WNBA because we got action tonight, including the Washington Mystics right here on the Team 980. They are going to take on the Minnesota Lynx. Lynx, they're probably a little ticked off, Ben, because they lost to a Caitlin Clarkless Indiana Fever on Tuesday in the Commissioner's Cup final. They won that last year. They could not defend their title. They lost to the Fever, and their offense was not very good. So tonight, the Mystics, who are fresh off a nice little bit of rest, they are going to take the brunt of that, and we'll see if they can step up to the plate against Nafisa Collier and company. 8 o'clock here on the Team 980. Also tonight, Aces and Fever at 7, Sparks Liberty at 7 in New York, Storm Dream 7:30, Mercury and Wings at 8 o'clock. Other than that, no games tomorrow in the W. You got a couple on Saturday, a few on Sunday as well, including Storm and Liberty. That is a 1 o'clock game on CBS. That should be a hell of a lot of fun for that one. Big time soccer this weekend. Last night, by the way, excellent performance by the U.S. Women's National Team. Like one of their best since the Olympics. They've won most of their games. They've been playing fine, but like really excellent performance for them with a 3-0 win at Audi Field against Canada. Tara McKeown, Washington Spirit star, on her birthday, comes into the game within 5 minutes, gets an assist. Love to see that. But the big one this weekend, Ben, USA-Mexico Gold Cup final. USA able to beat Guatemala last night in the semifinal. And for all of the hullabaloo, it was literally like 2 weeks ago on the show, we were talking to some folks about how bad U.S. soccer on the men's side is. How just like, oh my God, we're a year from the World Cup, and we are just stepping all over ourselves. And here they are. They found a way. They're in the Gold Cup final against Mexico. So that should be fun Sunday night.
Wow. I mean, I've been keeping up with it very seldomly just because, I don't know, U.S. soccer just hasn't piqued my interest as of recently. I'll get into it a little bit when they're in the World Cup, but I never have any expectations for them as opposed to the women who I always expect to win.
Yeah.
So I just don't pay too much attention to it, but I'll probably tune into that for a little bit because the Nats are done.
Yeah, USA Mexico, that should be a fun one. On like USA Mexico, whenever they get together, it's going to be a good time, and we'll see if the U.S. can pull off what would be an absolutely improbable Gold Cup victory. As for the Nationals, part of our weekend preview, obviously, as well, they wrap up their series against the Tigers tonight. So we'll see that one at Nats Park. And then they're right back at it tomorrow. Early 11:05 a.m. is first pitch at Nats Park tomorrow against the Red Sox. July 4th special there. Sox in town all weekend. It's 4:05 on Saturday. And then Sunday, you got a 1:35 first pitch. The Orioles playing a funky early game on Sunday. They're at 11:35 a.m. on Sunday. Ben, any idea what that's about?
Are they playing at home?
They're playing in Atlanta.
In Atlanta?
At 11:30 in the morning on a Sunday.
I have no clue.
That makes two of us. Absolutely no idea what that's
I'm going to
all
look
about.
that up right now, actually.
All right. If you find anything, let me know. Formula One's in Great Britain this weekend. The British Grand Prix, he said. Lewis Hamilton's first with Ferrari. Practice tomorrow, qualifying Saturday, the race on Sunday. Lots of rumors out of Formula One this week. Could Max Verstappen be leaving Red Bull for Mercedes? We'll see. If so, would it be George Russell's seat who he takes? Russell today says there's a very low chance he's leaving Mercedes. Verstappen basically declined to comment, but a lot of smoke in the paddock this weekend, and not from overheating brakes, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll see if any news breaks on all of that. All right, that's more or less what's happening this weekend. Any other sports things that you got on your docket this weekend, Ben? Obviously, if you count the hot dog eating contest, that's tomorrow because it's July 4th. Any other?
That's the most important one to me.
Oh, you're a hot dog contest guy.
And now we got Chestnut back in it. That's one of the greatest athletes in human history. We got to put some respect on Joey Chestnut, and I can't wait to watch him. I love how the MC of that event is always talking about how, like, these are the most fierce competitors and athletes in the world. I 100% agree with it. I think competitive eating is so cool. And the hot dog contest, it's disgusting, but I cannot look away from it.
Yeah, I can't look towards it. I'm just like, I'm good on this. This is
you're the
making me
fitness guy, so you're like, nah,
It's
no
not
way.
even that. I don't know. There's just something about it. I'm just like, that's not how food's supposed to be eaten.
I feel like either you love it or you despise
No,
it.
I get it, right? Like, I understand. I'm not going to, and I'm not just using this turn of phrase because we're talking about food. I'm not going to yuck other people's yum. I am just merely saying that the hot dog eating contest and competitive eating in general is not for me. It is incredibly impressive in its own grotesque way. And I think people that like it, like you just said, like, you're like, it's disgusting, but it's amazing. Like, you will admit it is disgusting. I can't get on board with it.
They're dunking hot dogs into water.
Yeah, just like I enjoy a good glizzy with proper toppings and such. But I want to enjoy it. I don't want to see how many I can eat at once. It's just not my jam. But that's tomorrow if you want to watch it. If you want to watch people eat hot dogs, you want to watch Joey Chestnut.
The Glizzy Gladiators.
Yeah, the Glizzy Gladiators. All right, the segment's over. That's it. We're done.
Yep.
Let's take a look at what's trending, and then we'll come back and wrap things up here on The Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. This is it for us for the week. Tomorrow, actually, Ben, do you know who's on this time tomorrow? Because we're simulcasting all day with 106.7 The Fan. We'll have the Nats game in the morning. And then live and local programming all afternoon long. Ben, you're going to be working some of it. So do you know who's on tomorrow afternoon?
Yeah, during this time I'll be working. It's going to be Linnell Willingham.
Okay, so make sure when you get out of your car today, turn your volume down a little bit for when you turn back in tomorrow. That's just a pro tip for media. Though I don't know who's louder, Linnell or Russell. It is amazing. And I don't mean that like proverbially, although they both have some very interesting opinions at times. I mean, literally, the two of them are so loud. Like, I have to turn the mic up when I get in studio. Or when today I'm doing for my home studio, we connect through this IP-based thing called a Comrex. And I always, when I connect, I'm like, why are my headphones too loud? Like, I didn't touch them since last week. And then I realized I turned them down because Russell's talking. And then eventually our show starts. I'm like, why are my headphones so quiet when like Anthony or today you, Ben, talk? And I've got the sound coming in the return feed. It's just because Chris is somehow that much louder than everyone else. I truly don't understand it.
Him and Linnell together during football season is crazy, but you might blare out your speakers of your car if you don't turn it down before the segment starts. I mean, I've made the mistake of, I was like listening to music one time. I had it up pretty loud because it was music. And then I flipped the dial. I turned off the Bluetooth or whatever you do now in your car. To Team 980, and they were screaming at each other, and it startled me.
Yeah, I mean, we used to joke because it's not really a joke. We just be like, man, like, what is going on in there? Because I would be, where I prep in my little cubby hole size prep studio around the corner.
Yeah, I recorded in there today.
Yeah, I'd be in there with the door closed, and they're in a studio that theoretically has soundproof glass, and I would hear them through the walls, through the soundproof door. And I'd just be like, what is happening in there? And then what do they call it, like Throwdown Thursday?
I think it was something about Wednesday. I can't remember.
They had Windbag Wednesday and Throwdown Thursday.
Yes.
And the only difference was one was on a Wednesday and one was on a Thursday. Just call it, if they did a show together, the show would just be called Loud. Welcome to Loud on the Team 980.
That'd be a really, really good brand, actually.
They wouldn't last 2 months.
You don't think they could have a show together?
I mean, the show might be good. They would kill each other. Like, one of them would be dead.
It'd be so entertaining, though.
I mean,
if it came on before you, it'd be such a change for the audience if they heard them, and then all of a sudden you're going to come on and just be yourself, and you're mellow. You got all the facts right in front of you.
Thanks for listening to Loud. The Change Up is next.
That would be really good.
Yeah,
really good actually.
All right. Well, we'll run that by the bosses and watch them go, no, I don't feel like playing therapist for Linnell and Chris Russell when they are ready to murder each other. 2 days a week is enough. All right. Football season around the corner. Who knows what awaits? All right. Let's wrap up the show, shall we? It's time for real things real people said in real microphones.
Wrong hockey.
Real people.
5 and 11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
All right. Last night, U.S. Women's National Team was at Audi Field. This is from one of their games earlier in the window here, though, in the international window. She had Avery Patterson making one of her first ever appearances, about to check into the game as a sub. And I just thought this was an incredible moment from U.S. Women's National Team manager Emma Hayes.
What would your 10-year-old self say to yourself? Then do that, all right? Congrats. You ready? Let's do this.
What would your 10-year-old self tell you right now? Have fun. Then go do that. What better way to get relaxed from a coach before a moment you've literally been dreaming about your entire life? That's good stuff from Emma Hayes. Sonia Citron was on the show yesterday, the Mystic Star rookie. I was not probably her favorite interview she did this week. She also sat down with Candace Parker. Very, very cool piece that they did where they got to watch some film together, and here's how that went.
You guys look pretty good on the defensive end for a young team.
All of our coaches really harp on defense.
So look, coming off the screen, there's Marina Mabry. You come across and get a help side block. Hezzy, draw 2, dish. This right here, to me, is not a rookie. You a little late. I'm gonna tell you, you're covering some ground, so I'm gonna give you, you're a little bit late, but your ability to understand that she's splitting this, to get over and to block the shot without fouling, and then take it coast to coast. The big thing in transition is drawing 2. What do you try to do when you're pushing tempo?
Our team really emphasizes pushing, but not forcing. Yeah, I wanted to push the ball up the floor because I knew we had numbers, but I saw Kiki running, but they covered that. I kind of had my shot if I wanted it, but I knew that Steph was trailing, and Steph is an amazing three-point shooter. Especially that trail 3 for her is money, so I want to share the ball, and she made it, so I was happy.
Always love when you pass the ball to your teammates and they make the shot. That is definitely a nice perk. The thing that strikes me about Sony is I said this after I interviewed her before the season, and I talked to her coach at Notre Dame, Neil Ivey, and watched her play obviously a little bit. She's just so thoughtful. And that struck me again talking to her yesterday. You hear it there. But it's one thing to be thoughtful, and then sometimes really thoughtful athletes get themselves in trouble because they wind up thinking too much on the court. And her ability to process information as a rookie is pretty next level, which is why she has had the success she's had. It's almost a shame that her, Kiki, and Paige Beckers are all in this thing together. It's awesome that her and Kiki have been able to bounce off each other, but Sony has been incredible and is a viable Rookie of the Year candidate. And now 2 months into the season, she hasn't won Rookie of the Month because her teammate got it in the first month, and then Paige just got named Rookie of the Month for June. So Sony, maybe she can get that in July, especially if she can continue what she did to end June. All right, that's our show. By the way, Sony and the Mystics, about an hour away, 8 o'clock tip. We'll see you on Monday here on the Hoffman Show.